Hello, good evening, Masa al Khair, and welcome to Words for Palestine, an evening of centering Palestinian voices during a time of unspeakable horror and deliberate erasure. My name is Riwa Zinati, and I'm the curator of public programming at the Arab American National Museum, located in Dearborn, Michigan. Before we begin tonight's program, I'd like to ground us with an acknowledgement that the Arab American National Museum sits on the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe peoples, known as the Three Fires Confederacy, and of the Wyandot people, and that it resides within the region with the highest concentration of Arab Americans in the nation. We also acknowledge our neighboring city, Detroit, as Anishinaabe territory and as being the largest majority Black city in the nation, with a long legacy of African diasporic contributions. Together, we work to uplift and honor these Indigenous and diasporic communities. The Arab American National Museum is the first and only museum of its kind in the United States devoted to recording the Arab American story. It serves as a touchstone that connects communities to Arab American culture and experiences. This past December in 2023, we hosted the first Words for Palestine online reading in an effort to bridge solidarity with our families in Gaza and to raise funds for PCRF and Palestine Legal. During this time of censorship and silencing, it's important to note that Palestine Legal is dedicated to protecting the civil and constitutional rights of anyone who speaks out for Palestinian freedom in the US. As we continue to center Palestinian artists and to raise funds to honor and protect those who speak out, our event remains free. It's been 7 months since October 7th, and we are still in the midst of one of the deadliest aggressions of the 21st century. It's been 75 years since 1948, since the occupation, since the stealing of our land, and the annihilation of our people. In only 7 months, tens of thousands have been murdered by the Israeli government and over 2 million Palestinians internally displaced and targeted by that same genocidal system, even in places they were told would be safe. But of course, we all know that nobody and nowhere is safe until Palestine is free and Palestinians are liberated. Our event, Words for Palestine, bears the responsibility of underscoring that very truth, which also connects to what Edward Said once wrote, على كل فلسطيني أن يروي قصته, which translates into every Palestinian bears the responsibility of telling their story. Tonight, we welcome poets Rasha Abdulhadi, Tariq Luthun, Zaina Arafat, and Priscilla Wathington. But before we begin, my friends, I'd like to acknowledge that Words for Palestine came about as a collective effort back in December by friends and writers Leila Halabi, Alia Yunus, Lisa Suhair Majaj, Diana Abu Jaber, Suzanne Maaddi Darraj, Leila Farah, and Ghassan Zainuddin. And since then, we have continued the conversation. I'd like to also thank our partners Misna, Rawi, and Palestine Rights, as well as the writers whom we'll hear from tonight. I also want to thank our audience and invite you to drop your questions in the chat if you'd like to ask our readers anything about their work, their art, their community organizing, or anything you feel like. And we'll look at the chat in the end and we'll raise those questions if we have time. So without further ado, I'd like to begin by introducing our first reader, Priscilla Wathington. Priscilla Wathington is a Palestinian-American poet and editor who lives in the Bay Area. She's the author of the chapbook Paper and Stick, Tram Editions, which draws from her past human rights and humanitarian work with NGOs such as Defense for Children International, Palestine Norwegian Refugee Council, and the Arab American Action Network. Her poems have appeared in Addy Magazine, Gulf Coast, Michigan Quarterly Review, Salamander, and elsewhere. She sits on the board of the Radius of Arab American Writers, Rawi, and is an MFA candidate at Warren Wilson College. Welcome, Priscilla. We're so happy to have you.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for having this space. Thank you for just continuing to bring forward voices about what's happening, voices against this violence. I really appreciate your work behind the scenes to make that happen. We are in a time of mourning. We're in a time of shock. Many times I find myself sort of stumbling around, uncertain about what I'm doing or what any action I take means in a day, whether it's as small as like feeding my children. We're in a time of rage that this could still be happening. I mean, how could this still be happening? And also, as we've been chatting about in many circles, it's a time of incredible visibility of Palestinian lives, incredible solidarity, movement work, and, a lot of clarity too among us of what has to happen and what has to be put aside day by day. And I also want to say that we're in a time of exhaustion, and I want to encourage people to also take time to rest. As some of my good friends have reminded me when I've said, like, no, I can't rest. I can't do anything to take my foot off the gas. And they have reminded me that this movement is not held up by any single person, any single campus, any single syllabus or chant or poem. It is a very, very large number of people doing this work. And so there is humility, and there is also shared accountability and making sure people do rest and then come back when they can. And I also just want to note that I have COVID right now. So I'm going to keep my reading on the short side. And please know that I'm with you all, those who are sick and those who are well and on the front line. And this reading is dedicated to the students, especially the students of Berkeley and the students at SF State. This first poem I'm going to share is called Against the Police, and it's by Miguel James, translated by Guillermo Parra. My entire oeuvre is against the police. If I write a love poem, it's against the police. And if I sing the nakedness of bodies, I sing against the police. And if I make this earth a metaphor, I make a metaphor against the police. If I speak wildly in my poems, I speak against the police. And if I manage to create a poem, it's against the police. I haven't written a single word, a verse, a stanza that isn't against the police. All my prose is against the police. My entire oeuvre, including this poem, my whole oeuvre is against the police. This next one is by me. It's called About the Author, and it's written kind of in the shape of a book blurb, like you would see, not a blurb, but like that little text at the back of a book. You can see it on the accessibility doc as well. Ask me what I am, I'll say, I slept in Jerusalem last night. I didn't drag my suitcase over the earthen barrier, hack the iron gate. During the exam, the optometrist says, there are some parts of the light field the eye shouldn't see. I cheated, looked away from the black box, drove my car over stalks of chobeze. See how I beg for attention, how I bury wild rosemary in the pinprick where the optic nerve enters your skull. She says she can show me the subsurface of my cornea on her monitor, how my vein bulges but doesn't burst. Some patients have thrown up after seeing. I haven't vomited since I abandoned my anorexia, swallowed the spoon instead. My throat is so flexible, I could birth a restaurant called Oasis in Ohio. I could retch sequins over your rice. At my teta's house in Al-Nasira, we always ate fried fish with a side of cracked wheat. My sister would squeeze the lens out of the fish's eye and look through. See, a picture of my peeled eye, the smudge where she held my eyelashes back, pushed me into the light. I return to Darwish always and always. This one, which I haven't really heard making the circuits recently, is called Journey. It's from the book, and unfortunately it was Paradise, translated by a little list of people, but Munir Maakash, Carolyn Forche, Sinan Antoun, and Amira El Zain. Journey. We journey to a home not of our flesh. Its chestnut trees are not of our bones. Its rocks are not like goats in the mountain hymn. The pebbles' eyes are not like lilies. We journey towards a home that does not halo our heads with a special sun. Mythical women applaud us. A sea for us, a sea against us. When water and what are not at hand, eat our love and drink our tears. There are mourning scarves for our poets. A row or marble statues will lift our voice. An urn to keep the dust of time away from our souls. Roses for us and against us. You have your glory, we have ours. Of our home, we see only the unseen, our mystery. Glory is ours, a throne carried on feet torn by roads that led to every home but our own. The soul must recognize itself in its very soul or die here. And I'm gonna end with one more poem by me that's called This Poem Is Not About the Genocide, and it's still a draft, but these times require reading new things and reading into the future we want. This poem is not about the genocide. It is about your mother, gorgeous and alive. I kiss her as I pass her on the street. I tell you at 80, she is healthier and stronger than me. In the evenings, she leaps across the hills like a freshly sheared sheep. Nothing harasses her, not even a mosquito. She scolds the old moon and washes the jam off its face. And no one tells her only in the West Bank is this kind of jumping allowed, or only in the area called B can you wash a friend's face. She visits anyone she wants. Everyone is home. They say, come, come, and pass around a tray of overfilled glasses of juice. Not the artificial syrupy kind sold at cardboard counters behind the shutters of tear-gassed corners, but the tangy sweet juice of an orange from a lush orchard in Jaffa, picked only when it is hanging low and dimpled, then driven to the market on a smooth and easy road. In this poem, there are no roadblocks between Jaffa and your mother's house. There are no turnstiles and no guns. No soldier lifts out an orange and chops it up to check if it is hiding a bomb. The roads are just roads. They go here and there without tanks and drones. And the houses stand beside them, just as they did yesterday and last year, full of jammy towels and soft words. And on the steps outside of one such house, your mother is learning to play the oud. The strings twang as she plucks them curiously, and the words she sings are like those you might hear anywhere. Something about time, something about life, too ordinary to record. Thank you. May you rest. May you continue.
Thank you so much, Priscilla, for your work and for your words. Um, the roads are just roads. I mean, what an ordinary statement, but yet so profound. Thanks again. And now I'd like to welcome our next reader, Zaina Arafat. Hello, Zaina. Zaina is a Palestinian American writer and the author of You Exist Too Much, which won a 2021 Lambda Literary Award and was named Roxane Gay's favorite book of the year. Her work has appeared in The New Yorker, The New York Times, The Atlantic, Granta, Harper's Bazaar, New York Magazine, The Believer, Vice, BuzzFeed, The Washington Post, and elsewhere. She at Bernard College and the School of the New York Times and currently lives in New York, where she is at work on an essay collection. Welcome, Zaina.
Hi, thank you so much for having me and for hosting this event. And I'm so glad that you started this series. It feels so somehow comforting to sit here this evening in solidarity with all of you, given the events of not only the last 7 months, but particularly this week, as well as we've watched horror in Rafah and just the heartbreak of the enduring heartbreak, really. And Priscilla, thank you so much for those beautiful poems. I was so moved by them, and I had. It's been a while since I have thought about the Mahmoud Darwish's collection. Unfortunately, it was Paradise. So I'm so glad that you brought that back into my just world right this evening. And so thank you. I'm going to read from a recent essay that I wrote about Ramadan, actually, and the idea of celebrating Ramadan in Gaza this year. And I wrote this for The New Yorker in March during Ramadan. And so I will read that to you. I have not really read, I've read snippets of it out loud before, so see how it goes. Okay. On the evening of February 28th, thousands of people gathered on Al Rashid Street in Gaza City in hopes that a convoy of aid trucks would bring them desperately needed food. The trucks arrived early the next morning at around 4:45, when a large crowd encircled them in an effort to obtain food. Israeli forces who were standing by opened fire. More than 100 people were killed and hundreds more were injured. Later, the Israeli army said that troops had felt threatened and that some Palestinians died in a stampede. The day has become known as the Flower Massacre. After I saw the news, I called my father to check on him. I'm in New York and he lives in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., but much of our family is in Gaza and the West Bank. He'd heard about what had happened, but didn't know many details. I can hardly stand to watch the news anymore, he told me. I pointed out that in 10 days, many Muslims would start fasting for Ramadan. I was struggling to imagine the holy month in Gaza, where the World Food Program has been warning of mass starvation. Do you think people will still fast? I asked my father. Of course they will still fast, he said. They're already fasting. He forwarded me a WhatsApp voice message from my cousin Jinan in northern Gaza. In December, Israeli forces attacked the UN school where Jinan was taking shelter with her husband and 2 children. A blast broke her jaw and she could no longer eat solid food. Her daughter, Nuran, who loves to draw anime, lost her right eye, part of her cheek, and the use of both hands. They waited 3 days for the Palestinian Red Crescent to take them to Al Shifa Hospital and have been there ever since, waiting for surgeries. Lately, Al Shifa has also been treating survivors of the Flower Massacre. I was amazed to hear levity and humility in Jinan's voice. Our situation is better than many others, she said. But what can we do? This is our fate written by God. All we have is the day of judgment. I messaged Jinan to ask how she was doing and what she was planning for Ramadan. A day passed before she was able to respond. Do you believe that we haven't tasted eggs or chicken for months? She wrote back. She's been surviving on pre-cooked rice, sometimes with lentils, hummus, and fava beans. Her family can't find fresh fruits or vegetables. As for Ramadan, she told me, we're going to fast as we can. Inshallah, we'll manage. Lately, images from Gaza have been filling my Instagram feed. I keep seeing photographs of Yazan al-Kafarna, one of at least 16 children who have reportedly died from malnutrition or dehydration in Gaza, a number that, of course, by now is far higher. In old photos of him, he looks like a 10-year-old boy. In more recent photos, his skin appears wrinkled and yellow, his open eyes look hollow, and his skeleton is clearly visible. I feel sick and sad and scared. How could anyone allow this to happen to a child? In another post, I see a photo of a refugee tent decorated with Ramadan lanterns. As I read the news from Gaza, I think about the special cruelty of killing hungry people. Death ends their misery, but forever denies them the relief that they were seeking. Part of Ramadan's joy is the act of looking forward to iftar, the meal that breaks the fast every evening, to Laylatul Qadr, the night when the first verses of the Quran were revealed to Muhammad, the Prophet, to the Feast of Eid, which marks the end of daily sacrifice. How do you celebrate the holy month when you fear the suffering will not end? My parents grew up in the West Bank, and their entire city, Nablus, transformed for Ramadan. You could arrive late to work, businesses closed early, and shops and restaurants reopened in the evenings for Souq al-Nazil, a nightly descent into the Old Town Market. My father, 10 years older than my mother, remembers the days before the Israeli occupation. At his grandfather's house, his family made dough and then brought it to a public oven to bake it into bread. Homemade lentil soup and fattoush salad were always on the table, along with qamar ad-din, a juice made from dried apricot. They waited to eat until they heard the call to prayer from the local mosque. At night, in the old town, he and his friends sang, walked, flirted, smoked argila, and poured cups of mint tea or sus, a licorice drink, from copper pitchers. Sometimes people would stay out until suhoor, the pre-dawn meal, and only then head home to sleep. My mother was a child when the Israeli occupation began. Not all of her 4 siblings fasted, and she found it too difficult. But she loved the evening rituals. One of the kids would carry a plate to the local market 10 minutes away and spend a shilling, or about 5 cents, on hummus. If there hadn't been any incidents with Israeli forces that day, they could go to the playground, but outings were often cut short by curfews. Each morning before sunrise, someone walked through the neighborhood, banging a drum to let people know it was time to get up for the morning meal. On Laylatul Qadr, when the late night sky is said to open for God to answer all prayers, and angels are said to descend to earth, she and her siblings would sit on their balcony and ask for money, clothes, or toys. When the crescent-shaped moon appeared in the sky, Eid arrived. We've put a man on the moon, we used to say, my mom told me, laughing, but we still can't tell when Eid will be until the day before. In preparation, she laid her outfit on her bed as her mother chased one of her younger brothers around the house, trying to wrangle him into his Eid clothes. My father's Eid was different. He'd wake up early for morning prayer, then head to the cemetery to read verses from the Quran at family graves. They'd give meals and sweets, often date-filled ma'moul or cheesy syrupy kanafa, to people who couldn't afford it or who had lost spouses or parents. After breakfast, they visited family. Children kissed the hands of elders and received a few coins. In my dad's memories, Christian and Jewish neighbors were the first to come over and wish them happy Eid. My parents did their best to hand down these traditions to my brother and me. In the DC suburbs, Ramadan was one of my favorite times of the year. When I was old enough to fast, my father started waking me up for suhoor with a bowl of Cinnamon Life cereal, which I slurped down before falling back asleep. At school, I couldn't eat or drink, so I dipped cafeteria French fries in ketchup and fed them to my friends. At birthday parties, I took a piece of cake home with me to enjoy after dark. We watched Al Jazeera's recorded broadcast from the Kaaba in Mecca until the sun went down. The certainty that Ramadan would end, and so would the hunger, made the days easier. So did the iftars we spent with friends, which sometimes doubled as fundraisers for Palestinians in need. I always loved to eat. As a baby, I once scampered off my changing table to snatch a falafel sandwich from my mother's friend, but food never tasted more delicious than after a day of longing. My favorite dish was bazella, chopped carrots, green peas, tomato sauce, and cubes of lamb served over basmati rice. For dessert, we ate atayef, little pancakes that were folded over with sweet cheese or walnuts. and then fried and doused in syrup, and watched Syrian sitcoms on TV. I believed in God and I loved Islam, but my fasting was less about religion than about ritual. In the diaspora, with its handed down stories and its longing to be elsewhere, Ramadan helped us connect with our heritage. It offered belonging. The act of sacrifice taught me to appreciate whatever I had, itself a Palestinian tradition, given how much the vagaries of history had shaped our lives. So much depended on when and where you were born. Were you 48ers or 67ers? Displaced or occupied? I can endure the hunger because I was part of something and we were together. One aspect of Ramadan from my parents is remembering better days. Even as a child, my mother wished that she could have celebrated like her mother did before the occupation. My father misses Ramadan during his college days in Egypt when the Nile glowed with lights and theaters played movies from the 50s, Cairo's golden age of cinema. Too often, these stories are followed by talk of how much has changed. 2 years ago, my mother and her brother drove through a town near Nablus on their way to an iftar. Israeli soldiers seemed to be everywhere, carrying guns. I'm scared, my mother told her brother. Why, he said. It's always like this now. It's difficult to imagine Ramadan in Gaza this year. I want to imagine that even at a time of devastation and deprivation, a personal act of sacrifice can still lend purpose to senselessness. Maybe it can give powerless people a small sense of control. When you fast, you can think, I chose this hunger. It was not forced on me. But maybe that's wishful thinking. Hunger is painful. It is one of our most primal desires and the most human. Inflicting it on someone else is inhuman. The only antidote is to eat. And in the same way that food brings people together, I wonder whether its absence keeps us apart. Hunger makes us weak, and not only physically, it cuts us off from the strength that comes from being together. In Islam, Ramadan is the month during which the Quran was revealed as a guide for humanity. God prescribes fasting as a means of self-discipline, a way to show Muslims what they're capable of. But he is merciful. Not everyone is called on to fast, especially if doing so causes harm. The Quran grants exceptions to those who are pregnant, breastfeeding, or menstruating, and to people who are traveling, elderly, or ill. Starvation or PTSD would count as illnesses. Fleeing your home would count as travel. These exemptions seem almost absurd, and maybe they won't matter. Some will choose to fast regardless. Sometimes the best way to forget one pain is to focus on another. I stopped fasting in college, mostly because I was away from home, but I went to iftars hosted by my classmates and often returned to DC for Eid. My uncle, the one who hated his Eid clothes, always brings his 5 kids to brunch at the Silver Diner in Tysons, Virginia, and we order pancakes for dessert. In the afternoon, we visit my mother's cousin and his wife, where we eat more. My uncle plays the piano, and my mother's cousin sings on the guitar. In November 2022, I gave birth to my first daughter, Noor. Motherhood has made Ramadan more important to me. I want to give Noor what I had, a heritage that's being erased and one that's become increasingly dangerous to inhabit, both here and in Palestine. During Noor's first ever Ramadan, my mother came to visit and spent many mornings playing Arabic songs for her, particularly one by the legendary Egyptian singer Abdul Hafiz. During Noor's tummy time, my mother told her that she's not only American, but also Palestinian. And when Eid came, a couple of weeks later, my wife and I took Noor to a Moroccan restaurant, then to the bucket swings at the playground. I missed the Silver Diner, but there was something special about forming our own Ramadan traditions. Lately, I've been thinking about mothers in Gaza. I read in the news that at one Gaza clinic, 1 in 5 pregnant women are malnourished, which makes it difficult to produce breast milk. 80% of mothers have been skipping meals to feed their children. My cousin Jinan told me that mothers have been feeding their children green leaves cooked with tomato paste and a pinch of rice. Others try to quiet their desperately hungry children by giving them chewing gum. These stories make me think of my own pregnancy when I often woke up ravenous, not only for myself, but for Noor. After she was born, her most painful and guttural cries came when she was hungry. I cannot imagine hearing them with nothing to offer her. This year, my mother will spend the last few weeks of Ramadan with us in Brooklyn, and if all goes well, a few days before Eid, my wife will give birth to our second child. One more reason to try to celebrate. I sometimes think about how I will explain their first Ramadans to them when they're older, how important it was to find slivers of joy in times of grief and despair, especially as a parent, how sometimes, for Palestinians, the only thing that keeps you going is the hope that things will get better. The other day, I sent a Facebook voice note to my uncle's wife, Rida. She lives in Jordan, but she spent most of her life in Gaza, and her immediate family is still there. In December, her brother walked 10 miles with his 8-month-old daughter on his back, breathing in dust and keeping his arms in the air in the hopes that soldiers would not shoot him. I don't know what Ramadan in Gaza will be like this year during the war, Rida wrote to me in Arabic, but I can tell you how it used to be. She sent me an Instagram reel, which was filmed during Ramadan in 2023. I could hardly believe that I was looking at Gaza. A lantern decorated with a moon and star was hanging in a store with fully stocked shelves. Outside, lights had been dangled over the street and wrapped around trees. I saw plastic bins of pickled vegetables, buckets of candy, and barrels that practically spilled over with fruit. Cars drove through the streets. Young people hung out at a lit cafe. She also sent the photograph I'd seen earlier of the refugee tent strung with lights. The juxtaposition said what she perhaps couldn't. I watched the video while sitting on my bed. I felt heartbroken and also proud of what Gaza was, of who Gazans are, of what Palestine means. My wife put her hand on my shoulder. Then I played it again, trying to remember better days. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zaina, for this wonderful essay and for bringing in your family and their memories and how different their experiences were and how we are not a monolith. And thank you for the many layers of this essay and the heartbreak and the truth and mabruk for your new baby. So happy to hear that. I'd like to welcome. We have people tuning in from Florida and Windsor and New Haven and Dearborn, and our next reader today is Tariq Luthun. Speaking of Dearborn, Tariq Luthun invites you to join him in demanding an end to the siege on Gaza and the illegal military occupation of Palestine from the river to the sea. Luthun, a Detroit-born, Dearborn-raised community organizer and award-winning poet, calls for the rights of return and land back for indigenous peoples globally. Luthun received his MFA from the Program for Writers at Warren Wilson College and currently serves as a board member of the Offing. His first collection of poetry, How the Water Holds Me, is available via Bull City Press. Welcome, Tariq.
Hey y'all, can you hear me? Cool. So yes, I see yes. So yeah, I don't really have much left in me these days, unfortunately. One second, let me pull my blinds down. I don't really have much left in me. I talk a lot and I go to a lot of places and I keep trying to like advocate for the same things. But wanted to first, shout out Rigwa and Priscilla and Zaina and upcoming Rasha for just like, holding the fort down in the lit space, sharing these beautiful words, and like having our words go beyond this ephemeral sharing of narrative and trying to make something more out of it. So I'll read some poems, but I want it to be like very transparent, just as a Khazawi, as somebody who just like doesn't really want to be here, and not in like a don't want to be here in community with y'all, but like if I'm gonna be somewhere, I'd like to be among my people as opposed to like at a desk doing this. And so I hope people on this call donate to Legal to support the kids in the encampments. I hope they donate to any of the mutual aid fundraisers that they see crop up. I know Rasha will speak to Municipality of Gaza and its efforts to try to rehab and rebuild water infrastructure. But also I wanted to call out and say, while everything happens in Gaza, our families, our people in the West Bank are also under fire every single day, while the narrative, the distraction of like certain things becomes the distraction to something else, right? So we see settlers trying to take folks' homes in the West Bank, all the while they're trying to take our lives in Gaza, all the while genocide is unraveling in places like Sudan, all the while the kids in the encampments are now the focus of the news media cycle, not the actual murders they are protesting. So, language is a very interesting thing. to manipulate. I see a lot of institutions failing to use their institutional power to save and spare us, and in fact, profit off genocide and death and doom. And it's up to us to keep calling them out. So I will start with a poem called I Want to Die, and we'll go from there. I want to die in the arms of everyone who's ever loved me, each appendage a tendril expanding into the ether of every moment I am leaving behind. Know this, I have dabbled in the enterprise of affection, cut my teeth on what it means to hold and be held. Behold, everything that has ever been labeled mine was stolen, first from me, but also now by me. The land from us, and now the land we were stolen to. I belong to nothing but my friends, those who have entrusted me with the gift of caring for them. For years, I trained myself to not feel for anything, to spare myself of having to feel for everything. No partner, no child, my parents will soon be gone too. Can you blame me? I watched men and women say things they don't mean and claim lives from bodies they won't ever eat. Some can't stomach culling the protein from a fly mid-drop before the silhouette of a gun. Have you ever fallen for something empty as a word? For me, it was joy, the way it bounces when spoken. For years, I would whisper it hopelessly to the moon, and I thought nothing of it until I found myself brave enough to chant before the sun. I thought nothing of it until I found myself brave enough to chant before the sun. It was in this light that I came to find my peoples. I took shape among them. Joy, 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 what a beautiful thing it is to feel. But then again, the word doom exists. Sometimes it's almost too fun not to say apocalypse. Even cicada sounds lovely with the right inflection. I wonder if it's stronger to nestle into the chest of one's sadness or to lie about it. Once, as a child, I spent late summer nights poking holes into the window mesh that shielded us against the bugs we'd stolen away from. Each puncture a compromise with those creatures seeking refuge. As I did it, I repeated the syllables, synonym, synonym. Caught between cinnamon and synonym, letting each letter pass through until the end of the word. I imagine that when this world ends, it will happen like a boy yearning to be released from a warm room, little by little, not all at once, unbothered by the thought of losing his place. I realize the lighting in here is terrible, so I'm gonna do this real quick, because I am trying to not make this a bad lighting experience for y'all. Cool. I think that's better. Cool. Hi. So yeah, I rambled already, so I'll spare you more of like the lecturing and whatnot. But I will say, y'all, for those who are engaged and involved, do not just donate yourselves. Please pester your friends. Text at least 3 or 4 people to also donate to places like Pallegal and eventually Municipality of Gaza. I know it's hard to get money in, but we might as well try because it is the very least we can do. This poem, actually I'll go back to the book. So I'll read from the book for a little bit and then we'll go from there. So, I don't know. Things are hard, y'all. There's things I wish I could talk about, but I'm not allowed to talk about them because it'll put people in danger. So I'll just read this poem. The summer my cousin went missing, I should have asked how her khalta was holding up. But I knew where she would be, her body weary and unkind, buried in the day's tasks, back turned to the home she grew up in, seeds in the farm soil like miracles sprouting as she tends to them. Is this not always the case? Child upon child goes, and someone's mother is no longer a mother. My aunt, a mother herself, looks for a moment away. Nothing she plants has roots long enough to hold. She turns back anyway, looks ahead. If we are too caught up in the end, like boys fleeing from the day's news, eyes worried about that which we cannot control, however will we stay fed? However will we live long enough to grieve? This next poem is one I wrote a long time ago. It starts off with 2 lines. I guess this is the what's the word? Epigraph. I think that's the wrong word. But there's more to us than what was taken from us. I know a lot of us as Palestinian, we hinge to this very rightly so, narrative of existence is resistance, but I find that to be insufficient often. I don't want us to simply exist. I mean, I know our existence is resistance, but there's so much more to us. And, you know, so many communities I'm in kinship with, we want to thrive, right? It's not just enough to exist. And I would argue our thriving is more resistance than just simply existing. So the poem is titled We Already Know This. A place to call home, land of olive trees and their branches, Palestine, Palestine. There I've said it. I want to be sure everyone knows where my parents hail from. I want to be sure each of us needs a place to return to. Genocide, I would hope everyone knows, did not start and did not end at the Holocaust. I haven't forgotten that everyone needs a place on this planet, and I prefer to live where I can leave the doors unlocked, or live without the doors, or hell. I don't even care for walls, but I do care for the blues, water, the sadness that comes when it is not within sight. I don't know if there is a child anywhere on this earth that wasn't at least once held by their mother. Water, where my mother held me until I was given to land, oh firm land, how my father holds me. People keep calling for blood, to dress you in it. I don't think any of them know truly how much of it the body can take, how much the body can lose. I was having a conversation with Fadi Juda maybe a month or so ago, and we were talking often as like being Ghazawiya, being Palestiniya. There is this like, people keep like saying, oh, there's like a prophetic quality to your work, because they are not familiar with what we are, which is history, right? I wrote this poem about genocide and doom and everything that's happening like 12 years ago. And lo and behold, we watch it unfold before our eyes. Not because we're prophetic, but because we know the playbook. This has been happening for over 75 years. It's been happening in so many communities before us as well. And I wanted to just kind of note that this is the doom we are met with when we do not fight back. Anyways, last poem. And thank you all for tuning in. Thank you again to all the readers. Thank you to the people hosting from Arab American National Museum. Really grateful for this space. I wish we could do it in person, but alas. You can't call it failure if you learn from it. I have lost so much. The fire of my life leaving me caked in soot. I wanted nothing. After everything I reached for looked like a match. I must be honest. My life is colored by ruin. I want to speak to every moment past, but then what time would I have for living? The greatest minds of my generation are driven by madness. We harness it as much as we are harnessed by it. I would love to say that each of us made it out alive, but then, yet few call what we have done living. I would love to say, we have done living. What asylum is afforded to those of us hunted by chaos. A girl once told me, we are made of magic. I had no choice but to believe her. She would raise her hand to stir the air, and I thought she was the only one who did this, until it struck me that as a child I used to do it too. Run my hand through the highway wind as my father drove us from errand to errand past the tall grass of Detroit. So many claim that bodies are hidden there, planted in the lurch, but I have never encountered a city that wasn't made to feed on the bodies below it. I grew up in the wake of this, only ever wanting to become one thing: useful. I gave care by making it impossible for others to care for me. Everyone I know is fighting something, so who am I to add to my loved one's suffering? Instead, I offered myself until this body stretched past its limits, new arms sprouting into the cut. What good is devotion that hollows us? I've lived long enough to witness my heroes become elders and our elders become ancestors for so long. I thought our generation would be the last to carry the torch. I've started to wonder if I was right for all the wrong reasons. Each day, a new land goes up in flames, and I watch an ensemble of silhouettes flicker till dawn. Mamas and babas, aunties and uncles budget between cupping water from the shore and salvaging who they can from the rubble. Each year that passes, I am more equipped to learn. Failure is the only thing I have ever been successful at doing alone. I've grown tired. The sky is hazy with the blood mist of bark burning. I've grown tired of this earth's slow conclusion. But this is where I stay. Inhale, Everything is dead or dying, yet here we are. Join me where the smoke blossoms. Thank you.
Thank you, Tariq. Thank you for your words. And I want to apologize. I mispronounced your last name. It's pronounced Luthun instead of Luthun. So forgive me for that, Tariq Luthun. I hope I'm not saying it wrong again. But I always appreciate your poetry, and I have your book, and I have it like all marked out. Yes, and like exclamation marks. So thanks for your work. Excuse me. All right. Excuse me for that. Oh, I think I'm getting sick or something. Okay, 1 second. It's so funny. We're joking. Priscilla gave me COVID. Yes. Excuse me. Okay. Our last but not least reader, Rasha Abdulhadi. I'd like to share Rasha's bio. Rasha is calling on you, yes, you, even as you read this. Oh my goodness. To renew your commitment to refusing and resisting genocide everywhere you find it. May your commitment. I just butchered everything you wanted to say, Rasha. I am so sorry. Let me say this again. May your commitment to Palestinian liberation, these are important words, I really want to say them. May your commitment to Palestinian liberation deepen your commitment to your own. May your exhaustion deepen your resolve and make you immovable. May we all be drawn irresistibly closer to refusals that are as spectacular as the violence waged against our peoples. Welcome, Rasha.
Shukran, Riwa. Assalamu alaikum, marhaba wa marhabtain. I come here not just to raise funds tonight, but to call us all to the unmaking of settler colonial worlds. I come here not just to perform, but to join other Palestinians here around the world and through time who continue to teach life. I come to you today with a love that would break walls. I come to renew hearts and refresh commitments to our shared liberations, which demand that we take every action we can to prevent the spectacular annihilation of the Palestinian people. The dead are with me today. Our dead are with me today. From Jabal al-Nar fi Nablus to Rafah, all our unburied dead in Gaza and the West Bank, more than 76 years of Palestinian dead, more than a century, are at my back today, and they are offering me rubble for the catapult. If anything I read tonight means something to you, I ask you to donate directly to mutual aid funds in Gaza. I call on you to do the morally correct action and support Palestinians directly. It is our duty to keep as many Palestinians alive as we can until liberation. Thawra hatti Nasr, hatti Tahrir. If you wish to honor the work of Dr. Arafat al-Arir, donate to restore clean water through the municipality of Gaza. See their pinned tweet at Muni Gaza on Twitter. You can also donate to any fund at GazaFunds.com. You can follow them at GazaFunds across social media. I want you to think carefully about how much you can comfortably give and then triple that. This is the time to get in the way, to lean into the friction in your life wherever you find it, to redistribute discomfort upwards. And may all the support and companions you long for meet you in that bravery. The first piece I'm going to read tonight is from 2021, because as many others tonight have reminded us, this did not begin on October 7th. History did not begin. Genocide did not begin on October 7th. This is finished with the piece. It is interrupting a letter, an anti-war letter written by poet Sigrid Sassoon in 1917 during World War I as he quit the war. I offer this poem in honor of student organizers everywhere, but in particular to the student encampment at the University of Chicago, who even after a brutal 4:45 a.m. raid earlier this week, remained steadfast, insisting we are the encampment. This poem is forever a counter to everyone who insists that protests and even resistance movements be peaceful, when we know that the powerful seek only a killing peace instead of our noisy resistance. You can tell, can't you? Hey, Kada, how the peace is the war they won. Pursuing peace has been the best excuse for making war. That peace of quelling, peace of graveyard, peace of the heaven of the carpet bombed and altar bled, peace of the quiet they require, peace of the weight of chains, peace of the drowned, peace of those by their own lives taken, peace of total surrender, the peace of everything stolen and nothing left to fight for or defend, peace of evicted homes, peace of full prisons, peace of 23 hours in solitary, peace of checkpoints, peace of total surveillance, the peace of no dissent or disagreement, peace of no payment for the workers, peace of empty farms, peace of full slaughterhouses, peace of blood on the slaughterhouse floor, peace of the empty clip and empty canister, peace of the tank's tread, peace of the drone's hum, peace of the hard-shelled fist of speed and progress of a more perfect union with the end of the baton, peace of the long road from the locked city to the village, peace of the smooth surface of the long wall, peace of the sniper's perch, peace of disappearance, peace of kidnapping, peace of trust and gagged, and no more the din of petition and protest, no more our jokes played, our banners planted on the back of police vans, our murals covering barricades, no more our dances against an audience of riot shields, no noise of the living, noise of the resisting, noise of children chasing each other, no noise of old folks talking story, no noise of groceries delivered, medicines delivered, dinners delivered, of debts loudly canceled and forgiven, no noise from the painters and poets and musicians, the puppet makers and sculptors, no more our mics electrified and feasts spread, no more the insurgent sound of us tending each other, making repair, reclaiming houses, derailing train engines to run as generators. So, the next piece I'm going to read is a litany of refusals to become ghostly, which was published at the offing in October. They reached out to me on October 8th about poems that I had shared with them, and this was one of them. This poem was read at the CUNY encampment just days before they were brutalized and kidnapped by the New York Police Department. May we all deepen our refusals of so much death-making. All the women are dying or forming battalions in the mountains. All the women are dying or going underground. All the women are dying or going into exile. All the women are dying or giving birth at the checkpoint. All the women are dying or in prison. All the women are dying or taking detours over the homes they can't go back to. All the women are dead, or else they are embroidering money and food to stitch to their children's tongues. All the children are dying, or they are in protest. All the children are dead, or they are reading poems at the border. All the children are dead, or they are taking pieces of the wall home in their pockets. All the children are dead, or they are flying kites against fighter jets. All the children are dying, or they are becoming the adults who are dead. All the men are dead and on posters, or they are in prison. All the men are dead, or they are writing books. All the men are dying, or they are digging escape tunnels with spoons. All the men are dying, or they are leading songs along the wall. All the men are dying, or they are flipping ladders over fences. All the men are dying or flying over every border. All the men are dead, or else they are against the wall. All the students are dying, or else they are organizing. All the students are dying, or they are being gassed. All the students are dead, or they are losing their scholarships. All the students are dying, or they are stealing food for each other. All the students are dead, or they are doxxed. All the women have been arrested, or they are driving themselves. All the women have been assaulted, or they are leading the people gathered in the square. All the women have been assassinated, or else they are arresting the police. All the queers are dying, or they are taking the old men's microphones. All the people are dying, or they are refusing to go home. They are dying and dying and dead, or they are refusing. We are dying. We are dying. We are dying. We are dead, or else we are refusing to our last breath. I'd like to offer this next poem as a taste of that otherwise that we might seek and make together for each other. This was published in January on West Branch, if you want to find it online. This is called That Nation Talk. Talk abolition, talk transformation, talk justice, talk justice, talk just us, making for each other because no one else is coming. Talk breakfast, talk Lebanon, talk coffee, talk tea. Tell me farms, tell me bees, tell me make this with me, please. Talk shelter, talk compost, talk trees, talk fruit, talk clothes, talk shoes, talk mending, talk pretending with the nieces and nephews. Talk nibblings, talk siblings, talk cousins, talk love. Kisses, kisses, kisses for all our friends, how we miss them. Talk dirty, talk fertile, talk little, talk turtle, mean tortoise, mean burrow, mean saving, mean refuge. Talk fleeing, talk fleeting, talk push, talk pull, talk borderless, paperless, talk paper printed for this zine. Talk clean, talk oiled, talk scented, talk musk, talk us, 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 just us, still, speak now, sing now, sleep now, sweet. Talk gun, talk melt, make smelt of defense. Talk safety, talk team, talk crew, talk streets. Talk halls and balls, crafting and brawling. Talk nurture, say accountable. Talk resource, say consequence. Talk reparations, talk return. Talk land, talk deed. Stop talking and pack all your bags, please. Just talk none of that make nation talk with me. I have a couple more poems for you. This one is a new one. It hasn't been published anywhere yet. It is one I wrote recently in honor of our host for the event. I'm reading it. And it is another sweet poem of gratitude to folks in Dearborn and Detroit who were so kind to me on a recent visit. The cab driver tells me, maybe you'll stay in Detroit and never leave. The train conductor talks to me like he's letting me know how to get home. My sibling says everyone tells her she'd love Dearborn. Everyone here assumes I'm from here and that I belong. Everyone is inviting me over for tea, lunch, art, a reading, khutbah. Everyone is coming through, coming over, and bringing their cousins. Noor hosts a bonfire in the backyard for all the scheming writers. Fargo finds new places to play pool, a quiet hustler. I'm not ready for Fadi to become my doctor, but the cicadas will be coming soon, in a summer superemergence. One cat wants all my attention and touch, and the other follows me, longing but aloof. My heart feels like I'm breaking. I feel more alive than ever. In an unending Ramadan since Al-Shifa, I can barely eat or sleep. I swoon, I die, I am Dearborn, I live, I Detroit again. Someone has flipped on the power grid in a town that's been dead for 14 years. Not all the lines are insulated, and some are throwing off sparks. Careful, careful, don't catch fire. Please, catch fire. Burn me, Dearborn, burn me, Detroit. Break me and make me open, more myself this time. Return me to my own life, truthful this time. No more hiding, no more making do. Let me be bolder and seedling both. Bring me back again and again, sprouting furious from the rubble. Every day I am cooked like a chickpea in the eternal beloved's own recipe. My hydrologist friend asks, what would this feeling be like, knocked down and spilled out? I'm asked how long I'll be here, and it's open-ended, negotiable, a gift. Maybe I'm here as a birthday present to the world. Maybe I'm here as a scandal to hide from every forensic agency. I'd never done it before, heard my name in my name's own language, spoken outside. Never been able to say, sohbah is what I'm seeking, not sadaqah, not hub, and have myself be understood without explanation, translation, and the way I'm talked to by firelight, called forth and conjured, love to love. Am I June's sweet menace? Am I a troublemaker in May's catastrophe? Am I a blessing, a questioner, a teacher, a student, always summoned, called destiny as a limit and a possibility? Ah, yes, tender danger. I have one more. This is a poem that is finding new life, although I wrote it after the uprisings, after the police murder of Freddie Gray in Baltimore. And I offer it to everyone shutting it down to resist and refuse so many long genocides, from Haiti to the Stop Cop City movements in that city that calls itself Atlanta, from the Democratic Republic of the Congo to Sudan, from Tigray to Gaza, from all of Palestine to all of this indigenous land, to everyone who has and will shut it down in the days to come through this long middle in which we may be closer than ever. This is Clarity Rests. All hope is bound to that clarity, to the ashen precipitate that falls and covers all alike in the afterbirth of a moment we will never transcend. How can you transcend a boat, a ship, the vessel you arrive in, one that ferries you, all of us, me too, across the river of this rupture? We arrived riding on the backs of a wave that chose us. Something that happened seemed suddenly that it had always been happening, and we could not be happened to anymore. This is the event we rode in on, the heat of having been ridden for so long, so roughly that we bucked back, kicked back, made the rough riders get back till it was them who were bidden by our audacity. And even now, we know we won't transcend. We'll try to extend our arms and get our fingertips to touch each other around the edges of all we're holding. With these snapping, popping, straining, burning tendons, we'll shut it down. We'll hold it together, for today at least. We'll hope that the sediment of our deeds will feed some future, and all the clarity that we hold rests on that hope. I want to remind you again to please consider donating to the Clean Water Fund at the Municipality of Gaza. You can see their pinned tweet on Twitter, or if you look on my account, you'll find it. And to go to gazafunds.com and choose either the featured fund or any other fund to adopt and to raise funds everywhere you gather, with any of the organizing groups that you gather with online and in real life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rasha. My voice is back, and I really, really appreciate that you brought up these funds and just your powerful work. Thank you for that gift. I just want to see if anybody has any questions, maybe that they want to ask our readers as we kind of wrap up. I want to thank Tariq and Priscilla and Zaina again for your important work. But I have a question. If you have a couple of minutes, maybe I can kind of ask you while people kind of get into the chat. I won't take too much time, and I just keep going back to the essay Notes on Craft, Writing in the Hour of Genocide by Fargot Bahi, which I know is a collective work, and this was soon after, this was published in December. And I just keep going back to the question, what does Palestine require of us as writers writing in English from within the imperial core in this moment of genocide, which is how the essay begins? And do we have like new ways of thinking about what is required of us as writers and artists in this time of genocide, writing in English in the middle of empire? Anybody, if you have any thoughts, please. Everybody's on mute, by the way. Rasha, did you want to say something?
Sure, I can. I think the most important thing is that we don't lie. There's so much lying, and it's really important that we don't lie. And the second thing that is really important is that we don't soften the truth or submit ourselves to words that are meant to bind us or trap us or limit our ability to survive or to divide us from each other, to create some categories of people who deserve to live or who deserve to be free, and other categories of people who deserve to be criminalized or buried. I don't have much more to say than that.
I think what I could add, and I don't want to be prescriptive because I don't want to be, ableist or lack any kind of consideration towards accessibility. Some people, all they are able to do is the thing they're able to do. But what I will say is what is required of us is to realize we're not writers, right? We are people who write. We are people who do a thing. And therefore, our duty, our calling is not simply to write. Writing is really powerful. It's important. We need documentarians, we need historians, we need archivists to do the work of writing and collecting our narratives and giving, reporting, right? I say this a lot. Poetry, literature offers texture to the reportage we are left with, right? It takes the statistics and it turns it into the narrative. And with the narrative, you have the ability to build movements, to build actions. And the reason why I say we're not writers and we have to go beyond writing is because as much as we must, work within the spaces we have access to, right? So if you work for a publisher or you have access to a well-endowed organization, you must ensure that they are divesting and that they are doing the work of ethical stewardship of our finances and whatnot. But more importantly, we must go beyond those spaces because at the end of the day, one of the things I've been extremely dismayed by is the sheer amount of the sheer waste of time my life has been inundated by when it comes to boycotting places like the Poetry Foundation and things like that, because I now have to fight people who are supposedly my friends while politicians are murdering my people. And so I think all of these organizations that can fail to say words like genocide should be shamed tremendously. And we as writers have the words to do it and the language to do it. Because if they're not shamed, it is the slippery slope by which fascism and actual actions in service of murdering us continue to blossom. But I want us to take a step further and say why we can't just be writers, because there are so many people in Gaza right now, right? So many young people, men, women, etc., who maybe they were shop owners, or maybe they were craftsmen, or maybe they were bakers, and now they have been turned into people who pull bodies from rubble. They are crisis response teams. They have been thrust into roles they never thought they would be in. And while they are still the people who will bake and will make goods and barter and whatnot, they're also like rescue teams now. And we as writers can't be precious about writing and precious about our bodies. We must do more than just write. We must show up and find ways to continue to push everywhere we are. So that's what I would say. Sorry if that's a little too on the nose.
No, not on the nose at all. We need to hear these words. I mean, that's why I asked. Thank you. Zaina, Priscilla, did you want to share
Go ahead,
something?
Zaina. You look like you're ready.
No, I think this is the question that I've been grappling with since the war. Okay, since October 7th, but even as my whole life, I think as a Palestinian writer, is like exactly this question. But I think in recent months, I heard early on in the war, Amira Haas, who is a journalist who writes for Haaretz, and said that and is very pro-Palestinian, basically said that everything normal right now is obscene, like any normal activity, and I think when she said that, it just made me feel as though, to some degree, I mean, kind of speaking to what Tariq was saying, like even just the act of sitting down in front of a computer and making a mug of coffee and putting down words feels obscene. There is this, it feels like something beyond writing needs to happen. And at the same time, there is this urgency to communicate through writing to people who can't otherwise be reached. And so I don't know what the answer is, other than to say that I feel like it's a very fraught question for me, because it's like there's this tension and contradiction between wanting to be out there doing more and yet also feeling like this power I have, I guess, is in many ways to write. And so I don't know. I really don't know. But I do think that in addition to that, basically our only responsibility is to like speak our truth and our humanity to the best of our ability in whatever form that takes for each of us as writers.
Yeah, I mean, I respect every answer everyone's given, and you know, there's a way in which there isn't a way to answer it, right? Because like you're saying, Zaina, the whole thing is obscene, right? It's obscene that I go to sleep in safety and people don't. You know, it feels wrong to eat. It feels wrong to sleep. It feels wrong to want to get better from COVID when other people have nothing, you know. So I think, you know, what I have to kind of keep coming back to as my North Star is what's the long-term play, right? I think when you're in crisis, a lot of the world can shut down into just that thing that's right in front of you. And because Palestine has been in crisis for so many years, different kinds. And I know that, you know, the crisis of 2014, for example, in Gaza may seem very small now, but at the time that was huge crisis, right? And you didn't know what would happen next. And so there is a sense of like at each moment, each year, there's a crisis, and that's all you can see. And when that happens, it shuts down your thinking, like I'm sorry, I'm sick, but what's the word? Like it changes your neurobiology, right? It releases certain kinds of chemicals and hormones in you that affects your thinking. And so it's really, really important to continue to attend to like a long-term vision. And the long-term vision always requires a collective. It always requires making sure that you're moving in a way. I guess I'm trying to not be too direct here in some ways, but you're moving in a way that takes care of the collective and not just yourself, you know, not just your brand, not just your opportunity, right? And I guess I want to say, like, putting aside petty differences, right? There, as we get here into 7 months, there's like some horizontal violence going on. There's some splitting up of the collective through really petty, minor kinds of things. And we have to really guard against that, right? To move forward into a long-term future, we have to really work at principles that hold us together and really staying focused on those things. So yeah, strategy, long-term thinking, being conscious that the way that emergencies affect us is to shut down some of our capacity for that, and then look for ways to kind of like rebuild it and not only be reacting to the thing that, you know, your worst enemy is trying to do to you, right? But to also be proactively building the thing that you want to live in, the thing that you want to see in the future.
Thank you so much for each of your answers, for your generosity, and each of you kind of gave an insight from a different angle, and it just works so well together. And it looks like folks on the chat have also been wondering what they can do as well as artists, and so I appreciate each of your answers. And I think we should kind of wrap it up right now. We're almost at 8:15, and I just want to thank you so much again. And to Tariq's point, yes, we would love to do this more in person. I would love nothing better than not be behind the desk right now as well. And to may we meet again and gather soon, wherever that may be, in the US for now, and then in our homelands, inshallah. So ya'tikun al-afiyah, and thanks for everybody watching. And we'll gather again in June 6th, inshallah. So have a good night and stay safe.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Really good to be with you all.
Lovely to be with you all. And thank you for hosting this and putting this all together. Really wonderful.
Bye, y'all. Go make somebody's lives miserable.
Ciao.
right, I think.
Thank you all. Good night.